Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 4 of the Cincinnati Cabinet of Curiosities presents Hometown Haunts. I am your host, Kat Klockow, and with me tonight I have Christina Gould. Oh my God.
I like that, Christina Gould.
Gould.
It's like, well, this week is the Treehouse of Horror, so like we
Yeah.
could have Halloween names.
I am putting Jeff's last name on your name. I'm sorry, Troy. Anyway, Christina Wald and Jen Koehler.
Hello.
Welcome, everyone. It's another creepy week. We have a lot of stuff to share. First off, Christina, you have an update on our Kickstarter for the Cincinnati Cabinet of Curiosities Comics Anthology #1. It's not like I say it 50 times a day.
Well, that's why it gets confusing after a while. We've said it so long and we've been pushing so hard, but it's because we like it so much. I mean,
we do
want to
we
share
love
it with
so
so
much.
I mean, it's really exciting, and we're at 93 backers.
Whee!
And 3,418 right now. So we're like 2,500 shy of our goal. So it's super exciting. And actually, we really hope we can get some stretch goals, because we plan to put most of the money into the next issue to pay artists and start writing and all that stuff. So
yeah,
we're super
over 3,000.
Yes, thank you
in
so
the
much.
first week.
Yeah, we're so excited. Thanks everybody who has been supporting us. We've had some great press, the Inquirer, WCPO. It's been really wonderful. So
Yes.
if you haven't backed yet, please back. If you have backed, yay, we
have the new tier too.
Yes. Oh yes. Talk about the new tier, Kat.
Oh, so oh man, I don't have it pulled up. Man, but we have the regional cryptid tier that we just added, and it's $35, and it has, let's see, the digital version, it has the physical copy, it has stickers that I know I drew one. I drew a Mothman. But we also have these new cryptid prints, and we are unveiling a different artist's print every single next 4 days.
Yes.
Every day. So daily. And today was Jamie Filer and his Mothman print, which is epically awesome. And I'm so excited. I actually amended my original backing because I backed my own Kickstarter and to make sure that I can get this, because even though I'm the editor, that does not guarantee me prints. So I was like, I have to have these.
So tomorrow we're revealing another artist, and then we're going to, some of the later prints they're going to be slower reveals, but we'll definitely be revealing the artist's name each day this week. And then we'll get to kind of see the art unfold of the other two prints. But if the first two are any indication, we're super excited. And it seems like that's what artists want to draw. Whenever you're saying, I want to, I gave them the option of drawing a haunting or a, house with a ghost or whatever, and it's always the cryptids. Everybody wants to draw cryptids. It's like an obsession.
They're so much fun to draw. That's why with my level with the sketches, I was like, please request monsters, because they're fun to draw. So and yeah, that's our new tier for this week. And it will be, just stay tuned to the Kickstarter to see all the different cryptids that get revealed and the artists. They're all local Cincinnati region artists, which is awesome.
And then Kat's been involved in something really exciting. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so for my friends over at the Drama Workshop, I put together a short ghost story, and I got to tell it for their workshop fundraiser. And my tier of the fundraiser is called Local Legends, and I'm with a number of different local storytellers. And it's a mix of historical and fictional spooky stories from 7 local storytellers: Greg Hand, Carol Marie Stock, Bill Stringer, Kat Jones, Jeb Brack, and Adriana Marie Boy, in addition to myself, Kat Klockow. And I'm not going to reveal what story I talked about, but it's a good one, and it's so full of Cincinnati history. It is a true story with a ghost attached to it. So I enjoyed doing it. It was a fun project, and I loved talking, if you hadn't noticed. So please go check them out. It's the Drama Workshop in Cincinnati. It's their fundraiser, and my tier is called Local Legends.
Excellent. That's really cool. So I guess now it's on to weird things we saw this week.
Yes.
Okay, let's see. Who's going first?
You can.
Ooh, let me pull up my file. I have my file here, but like you, we each said we have 8,000 things open on our computer.
There's so much going on, which I'm glad that there's a lot going on. But at the same time, I'm like, why did I sign up for so much stuff?
I
There's
know.
why did I do this?
It's because we've been trapped in our houses for the last 6 months and we're like now doing stuff we never leave our desks, but we're doing a ton of things. So
right.
that's kind of
Yeah.
what's happened. But the weird thing I saw this week was, remember in 2016, they had clowns showing up. And so
Yes. It
again,
was
my
like
favorite.
around it when it came, the first part came
Exactly.
out.
Well, my favorite site, Boing Boing, had an article this week about a group of creepy clowns scaring citizens in Fargo, North Dakota. And there's not much to the story. It's about a mother and her son playing tennis, and suddenly people in clown masks show up. But I'd be curious to know if that's ever happened in Cincinnati. Do you guys know if you've ever heard of anything like that?
No.
I mean, not that we're
No.
trying to give people the idea, but I guess I don't know if it's like the popularity of it or what it is, but it's kind of a weird trend.
Yeah, no, I haven't heard that happening in Cincinnati.
I mean, it's a good surefire way to get yourself shot if you're going to stand in the woods looking like a clown and menacingly stare at people. Don't do it. It may sound like fun, but don't do it.
Well, maybe that's the new mask. People just wearing clown costumes and masks.
Yeah, there was a lot of those at Halloween last year.
And Kat, what did you see?
So my thing in this, I actually first saw it in a meme on one of the social media sites, and I looked a little bit into it. And mine is ancient mummies unearthed in Egypt after more than 2,600 years. And the meme that I had seen with this was, please no, don't open them. There's been enough crap happening this year that we don't need the curse of the mummies in 2020. And basically it's they found a necropolis with 59 ancient coffins. Wow. And in where is it? The ornate sarcophagi had remained unopened since they were entombed near the famed step pyramid of Djoser in Saqqara, according to Egypt's Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities. And so they did open the sarcophagi and they also have, say, footage shared by the ministry show color. No, wait, they may not have opened them yet. This, kids, is why you pre-read articles before going on radio shows.
It's called editing.
What? Well, anyway, the artifacts are in excellent preservation, and they'll be displayed at the Grand Egyptian Museum next year. Oh, they did open some of them because I have a photo of a gentleman wearing a mask, very gently opening up the sarcophagus with a mummy wrapped up inside.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure nothing bad happened.
I'm sure nothing bad will happen from this. Absolutely nothing.
And what about you, Jen?
Well, this isn't, it's not weird. It's just, to me, it's fascinating. It's, I saw an article on the Body Farm in Tennessee. And it's
this
an archaeological.
Made me excited.
Huh?
This made me excited.
Oh, good. You know, it's funny. I read an article about it years ago, and then they did an episode about it on Bones. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I know what that is. But anyway, it's an archaeological program, I think, at the University of Tennessee. Mm-hmm. Some college. And they study how bodies decompose, and it's just really fascinating that they are doing this and that people will donate their bodies to it so we can learn how things happen. And it got started. I'm going to read from it. It's an IFL Science article by James Felton. And he released it last week, or published it last week. And the history behind it is anthropologist William M. Bass in 1971 conceived the idea. Bass wanted to better understand the decomposition process of the human body after being asked by law enforcement to analyze the body for criminal investigation. Police discovered a grave that had been disturbed, and the corpse inside looked suspiciously fresh for a man who supposedly died during the Civil War. They believe the grave may have contained the body of someone recently murdered and then placed in the grave where Colonel William Shy once lay. Bass, too, thought the body had been switched, given the corpse's pink flesh. However, he was wrong. Analysis of the body's teeth would confirm that it was Colonel Shy, and his body had been well preserved due to the tight seal of his iron casket.
Which they have now ruined.
I'm sure he's not in as great shape now.
Nope.
No. But because of that, it led him to create the program. And one of the things that has been suggested they learned from their research, and I thought this was a little creepy. It says, recently it's been suggested that flourishing plants could help investigators spot where a body is buried due to the nutrients in the ground. Last year's investigators discovered that corpses move for up to a year after death, with their arms even moving 90 degrees from the body.
Oh my God, that's so fun!
How do they
Really?
move though? Is it just like gas, or is it from animals? But how does it move?
That is really wild. I didn't know that. That's a weird.
I know, but they do all these different tests. Like they'll put you in the trunk of a car, they'll submerge you in water, they'll set you on fire, and I'm just like,
they'll leave you strung up in trees.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I actually looked up the body farms because I know there's several in the United States.
Yes.
And we have a few. And would you like me to read them out?
Yes.
Okay, so we have the University of Tennessee, Western Carolina University, Texas State University, Sam Houston State University, Southern Illinois University, Colorado Mesa University, and University of South Florida. And I love, shout out to Southern Illinois University for testing how bodies decomp in the Midwest.
Well, that's
Here,
important to
in
know.
Cincinnati. Yeah, it's actually very important. And we did not have one at Indiana University. I'm not sure which one they worked with, but I find they don't always use human corpses. Pigs will also get substituted from time to time. What I did love was a follow-up to your article, Jen, where cats were eating them, the corpses.
Oh, yeah.
And actually looking for specific ones and eating them over a course of months.
Really? So they picked certain people. So they would avoid certain people.
Yeah, they picked their favorites and came back to them. And they would even have gaps in the weeks. So it wasn't always the same schedule. So
Cats are truly evil. They're all sweet when you're alive.
Well, maybe they're just efficient.
Efficient, yeah.
Maybe.
Well, I told you, my cat she's gonna eat me. If I die in my sleep, she will eat me.
It'll be your eyeballs that will go first.
Yeah.
Well, speaking
And
of
then
evil,
your cheeks.
speaking of evil, I guess this is a good segue because we were going to talk a little bit about Satan's Hollow. So did you want to kind of start with a little introduction?
So what we have in Cincinnati is a wonderful urban legend that a lot of people know about, but very few actually visit. Except for Christina and Jen. They visited it. And this place is Satan's Hollow in Blue Ash, Ohio. One of the best known urban legends in Cincinnati tri-state region is one of the least seen places, which is Satan's Hollow in Blue Ash. A series of drainage tunnels located in an urban woodland. It is said that they are the entrance to hell and that Satan himself stalks the concrete passages at night. As legend goes, a group of Satanists gathered together in these drainage tunnels to secretly hold dark masses in the altar room, doing animal sacrifices, conjuring devils, and even holding a human sacrifice to summon the Lord of Darkness himself to Blue Ash. Screams can be heard coming from the tunnels. Floating skulls have been witnessed have been witnessed haunting the areas, as well as reports of a shadow man stalking the woodland around the entrance into Satan's Hollow. And he keeps visitors away. Because these are storm water drainage tunnels, to actually make it to the altar room is a bit of an inclined hike in a narrow tunnel system that you should not be visiting. Not to mention that the Shadow Man may actually be a local homeowner whose property visitors are trespassing on, since the tunnel empties out onto private land. It is most likely that you'll come face to face with local law enforcement before you'll actually find the devil himself. And then Christina worked on this piece for the Cincinnati Cabinet of Curiosities comics anthology. So Christina, how was it like visiting Satan's Hollow?
And Jen, you can come back since you were with me.
Yeah. You two actually did this legend trip, and I did not come along.
And I'm going to post a picture because on the Channel 9 article they just did of us, they went, when they went there, you could actually see it pretty well. But when we went, a couple of trees have fallen from, all the storms we've had. We've had some pretty, bad weather. And so you couldn't actually get to it. There's giant trees obscuring it now. So there's not a clean entrance like what I drew in the comic at all. As a matter of fact, it probably was somewhat treacherous getting to it. So it's perhaps
treacherous.
Perhaps it's Satan trying to close the door or something.
He's had it with blue ash.
But it's kind of a weird location. I mean, as we discussed before, like there's a bunch of apartment complexes around it. There's actually we're probably revealing too much. There's a new townhome, really nice townhomes right next to it. But where I kind of had thought it was an abandoned area for recreation where there was a basketball court or tennis courts, right? And basketball. And there was like an abandoned play set and an abandoned aquarium, which Jen got really nice photos of. That was very strange.
All I could think of was when Jen said that Satan was closing up. I'm like, dang, Girl Scouts, get off my lawn. Don't want any more of your Samoas or Thin Mints.
There's not enough evil in blue ash, apparently, to sustain his presence.
Well, it's interesting because when I was doing the story, I couldn't find anything about where this story came from. And so for our talk today, I decided to do a little research about how common it is for drains to actually have this sort of lore. And a quick Google search, and there's actually a drain system in New Jersey which has a very, very similar legend. It's a bigger drain, but they say it's 7 drains that are the circles of hell, and that there's a skull room. I mean, it's very Raiders of the Lost Ark or something,
I was just about to say, it's always bigger in New Jersey.
Yes, exactly. I mean, it's a very similar story. And then I also found another story, and I'll put links in our description of the show, but there in Salt Lake City, there's rumored to be tons of tunnels underneath the city that all go to the Latter-day Saints temple. So, and it looked like some of those are drains and that sort of thing. So there's all this lore around drains. Like if you've read Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman, that takes place in the London sewer systems. It, of course, by Stephen King, takes place in the drain systems. There's all this lore. And
our friend Jay Callaghan's book Mest takes place in the drains
and I think
the sewer system.
Yes, Mest, and we'll have a link to Mest too. I mean, I think that there's a lot of lore about them because they're very sophisticated architectural structures that no one is in, so they're hidden.
They're also really similar to other gates of hell, and that are historically important around the world. So they're kind of a modern structure that goes like a modern cave, basically, that's going into the earth. And that's looking up the different gates of hell from different traditions. All of them are either man-made or most are naturally made structures, and it ranges from places in Greece, in Italy, in Japan, in China. A lot of them are caves, but there's some old volcanoes that are believed to be it. So I think that's just a translation of that fear of dark cavernous areas that humans tend to have. And with the overlay of the satanic panic from the 70s and 80s and early 90s. And we also have a story from Indian Hill that a friend shared that was an interesting add-on to.
Yeah,
Satan's
I mean, I
Hollow.
had a friend from college, and she grew up. When I first posted, I had done the story. She thought it was the same drains. They actually went to different ones. But you know, she kind of, the way she described it is how every urban legend is. A friend of a friend died, but you know, nothing specific. And I asked her where she first heard the story, and it sounded like it was almost like gossip on the school, in the schoolyard. And
Yeah.
then a group of kids, when they're, you know, in the 80s, kids were probably a little bit more free to go into drains. I mean, I think now parents probably
You're
don't
probably
let their
not
kids
wrong.
they probably don't let their kids on as long a leash as when we were younger. And so you would go places you weren't supposed to. And you know, talking about any of those caverns in historical, some of the documents you were looking at online, probably people did hurt themselves and die and disappear. I mean, if you fell, you know, in a cave, if you, like when I was in college, we went through some cave. I don't even know where it was, but at one point we were like dragging ourselves with our elbows in this area that was perhaps like maybe a foot tall. And, you know, in situations like that, there's probably no Satan there, but they are dangerous and you could get hurt and left there.
Yeah, just the rock formations themselves can be really sharp and tear you up.
Yeah, exactly. So you could see where, you know, these sort of the hidden places might start getting a lore around them. But, you know, it seems like a mashup of different things that people tell each other to embellish the story.
Yeah, and there's also the hypothesis that these are just kind of a continuation of those kind of, how does it get phrased? Scary dares that teenagers will do to kind of prove their worth. Traditionally, it used to be like walking through a cemetery in the middle of Halloween night. And you still have a lot of cemeteries with that urban legend of visiting the cemetery on Halloween and you will see whatever spooky ghost. And this just seems to be a more suburban version of that. And I think slightly more illegal, dangerous version of that. But
True. Did either of you ever go into creeks or caves or anything like that when you were young?
No.
Really?
I did. Yeah.
Well, I grew up in a city, so I wasn't like out near any. I mean, I used to roam around the neighborhood all the time, and there was this one house at the corner of the street I grew up on that we were convinced was haunted because we knew no one lived in there, but we heard heard people walking around in there, and who knows what that was. But I remember when the elderly owner died, his body coming out, and then the paramedics putting him on the front porch on the stretcher. I mean, he was covered. I think he was in a body bag, but that was the first time I think I had seen a body in that way, like out in the wild, so to speak. Not really the wild, but not in a funeral home. And it was
the wilds of St. Louis.
Yeah, wilds of St. Louis. There used to be a park, though, that was not too far from my house that it was rumored someone murdered somebody and then buried them underneath the concrete steps in Carondelet Park. And I remember, I can see it in my head now, and I'm pretty sure it's probably still there, but there was always a rumor that that particular part of the park was haunted at night. And I think people used to dare each other to go. But I was too young. I was under like 10 at that point. So I wasn't allowed to go that far away from my home.
Well, and that's one of the things that my friend put in her description was that there was a group of kids. I mean, it's like every 80s movie combined, you know, Goonies, you know, you went out with a group of friends and, you know, parents seemed to, you know, be playing bridge or whatever. like I said, the 80s was kind of a free range kid time,
Yeah.
I mean, we were kind of on our own a lot. And so, and she said they heard moaning coming from the drain, and it was probably cars or, whatever. But when you're a kid, you want it to be like ghosts. I mean, part of it is you really want it to be something supernatural.
Right.
I mean, who wants the logical explanation when you have ghosts and flaming skulls?
No one.
Yeah.
It's just raccoons.
Yeah, no one wants to know it's a possum.
Yeah.
I don't, what is, and I get that, like, what is it about being safely scared? Like, I don't, maybe it's the adrenaline rush.
I think that's a lot of it.
Yeah.
Just like with roller coasters. There's this, I know with ghost hunts, when I would either host them or be on them, or lead them, the people that were paying that weren't the normal investigators had done this for a really long time. It was an adrenaline rush. Everything was creepy because suddenly you're walking around a historical landmark that creaks when you walk past it, because usually around here they're at least 100 years old. And you hear all these ghost stories. A lot of the people who go to them were horror fans, so they're primed for this. And every single sneeze or pigeon or bat was something freaky, and they loved it because it got their adrenaline rushing and probably other hormones going too, like dopamine. And I'm not a chemist or a biochemist. So, okay, everyone, we actually interviewed earlier this week a friend of ours, Kerrie Logan Hollihan, who is the author of Creepy and True, Ghosts Unveiled, available through Abrams Publishers. So it was a really interesting interview. Please enjoy, and we'll come back right after. Tonight, we have a special guest with us, Kerrie Logan Hollihan, who is the author of Creepy True Stories, Mummies Exposed, and Ghosts Unveiled. And tonight we're talking about Creepy and True, Ghosts Unveiled. Welcome to our show, Kerrie. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much, Kat. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here and speak with you a little bit about what I've learned about ghosts in the past 3 years.
Yes. So what got you interested in writing a book? And this book is great for those who are just getting into the paranormal. And if you're like I was, a teenager, found books extremely boring, but creepy things were fascinating, this is a good way to get into reading more about history. And that's why I loved your book, because it reminded me a lot of ones I read at the Scholastic book fairs or in my library in elementary school. And that's what got me reading, and eventually I became an author myself. So what got you interested in featuring all the different locations in Ghosts Unveiled?
Well, it's kind of an irony. I never dreamt I was going to write a book about ghosts, but I did the first book with Abrams Books for Young Readers, Mummies Exposed. And they liked it. And I think they liked it, or they saw it when I was in process with it. And before I had even had it finished, they came to me and said, we would like to see you do a series. And we want to call it Creepy and True. And they said, and we also like your next proposal, which was Murder and Mayhem. And because I'd sent 2 proposals, one on mummies and one on Murder and Mayhem, which they kind of distilled into a book by Bones. So, okay, fine. So we're going to do mummies, we're going to do bones, but in between, we want a book about ghosts. And I'm thinking, this is going to be really hard for me. And because I just haven't thought much about ghosts, except that I remember seeing in great, black and white, a show back about 1965 called The Ghosts of Stately England. And there it was on film. They showed a few situations in England where ghosts actually appeared and disappeared, and it was actually on film. And that stuck with me for a long time. So I said, okay, fine, I'll write a book about ghosts. But then, as I say right in the beginning of the book, yeah, sure, ghosts are creepy, but are ghosts true? And because I consider myself to be a little bit in touch with the zeitgeist out there or whatever, but but exploring the paranormal wasn't something that I was really used to. And as you can tell from the introduction, I started randomly talking to people, including these kids across the street. And, well, do you believe in ghosts? And people started to share stories with me. I have a background in journalism, and I tend to be, as you can kind of tell, I'm fairly chatty. So, but I also like to ask people questions, and it's just because I guess I'm curious that way. And so, as I went through the book, I started to, do that, and that's how it all developed. So.
Yeah, and you have a variety of different stories that you include. And I like how you start with ghosts of pets and animals, which does not get enough love and usually gets shoved into the back of a book. So I like how it was at the front, because I know personally I've had a lot of encounters with my dearly departed pets. And I know a lot of people, when they do talk about their personal encounters, the pets tend to be one of the most common, especially dogs and cats. So I do like how that's the very beginning. You talk about ghosts. And the one that I found interesting is the black sulk that you talk about, and at the very beginning with the climbers running into him, and it just, the number of times that you run into it starts determining what your fate's going to be.
Yes, it's a really creepy story, really, really creepy story. Comes from a very, very old copy of the Connecticut Quarterly, and but the legend and the lore is still around New England, like the Connecticut Historical Society and whatnot. It's a pretty well-known story, and people still have accidents, up on those cliffs, and they often will attribute it to something creepy going on up there. Yeah.
So when you were doing the research, how did you go about it? Was a lot of book research, field research, interviewed people?
Talking to people. We wanted to do something pretty global, but of course not every culture has ghosts the way we think of ghosts in our Western culture. But because the book is printed, it's set up to be multilingual, even though right now it's English right now, but we do go in other languages often too. Things are translated. And so I wanted to be sure that I kind of got all the parts of the world where we have, well, number one, ghosts that we think of as Western type ghosts, but also in Asia, there are also the other kinds of ghosts. And I'm sure you're familiar with this because you said you have a background in Japanese studies and so on. And so, and I was in Korea and Japan in the summertime a few years ago, and it was so darn hot. It was so hot there.
Yes, it's very hot and humid.
Who thinks of ghost stories coming in July and August? But I didn't realize, as we were in Kobe and we were touring an old temple, and we go up to a mountain house, and the guide said, well, we set part of this on fire, and we have that's the celebration of Oban, when they welcome the family spirits back. And then I discovered that because it's so hot, you want a chilling experience, and that's why the ghosts are timed to come back in July and August.
Yes, it's telling the ghost stories is supposed to give you chills, which is supposed to cool you down.
So, so we got our three Japanese women who are really, really terrifying. And then I've got I'm so pleased I could get images of them to put in the book. But then my daughter-in-law is Korean, and my next door neighbor was born in Korea. So they talked to me a lot about Korean ghosts, and I could never find any kind of an image. So I was really sad, but I guess the creepiest ghost, as it's in the book, was in Korea, is this egg that you kind of, sort of this amorphous egg that if you find it in the mountains and encounter it, you're gone. That's it. So, yeah.
I know a lot of the paintings that I think you used for the book were ukiyo wood prints that were done, and they went with the kabuki plays that were made of, like, I believe you highlight Okiku and the Well, which is the famous story that The Ring is based off of, that movie. And I can't scoot over to those pages right now, but they're very famous ghost stories that were translated for Kailadon, which was Lufcardio Hearn, who Lufcardio Hearn used to be a writer for the Cincinnati Enquirer, back in the
Wald.
1870s. And he moved to Japan, married a Japanese woman, and translated all those stories that you retold in your book.
Well, that sounds like an article that you need to write for something. Yeah.
Yeah, but I always love our Cincinnati ties with Japan, and also happy Chuseok to everyone in Mid-Autumn Festival. It would have happened this past weekend. So, and happy Obon to all of our Japanese viewers. All 2 of them, which are my host family. But moving on, have you been on a paranormal investigation yet?
Only virtually, and not well. I take that. Well, I've watched little bits on Vimeo and things. I watched the paranormal investigation that took place when people were hunting Ned Kelly, the ghost of Ned Kelly in Australia. We were in Australia a few years back as well, and so it was fun to kind of pick up a little bit of the vibe as they talk about it. And I have a picture in here and a little bit of things about, and his name escapes me right now, of a really great guy who hunts ghosts. In particular, was scratched in the back by something or other when he was investigating the Ned Kelly. So Ned Kelly being an Irish immigrant to Australia, and therefore kind of on the outs with the British authorities there, and he staged a series of robberies, of bank robberies and things, and became quite a folk hero and an anti-hero in Australia, and he's famous to this day. And so, I went along virtually on this paranormal visit to hunt Ned Kelly, and it was pretty cool to watch this happen. So yeah.
Oh yeah, that is neat.
Yeah.
So Ned Kelly was kind of like our Jesse James.
Kind of, yes.
Or John Dillinger.
Yeah. He was executed. He was gone at age 25. That was it. So,
that is young to go.
Yeah. So,
were there any haunted locations that you would like to visit that are included in the book?
Well, a couple of I've been. I would like to go. I would like to go to Turkey. I would like to go to Gallipoli. I wrote a book in Turkey, in the Dardanelles. I wrote a book on World War I a few years ago, and so back in the day, there was a really famous movie called Gallipoli with Brian Brown. Back in, I want to say, the 80s, I think. And so that kind of sparked my interest. And when I started researching the ghosts of World War I, we had the story of this actual journalist, Sidney Mosley, who documented a sighting of a young man who had been killed or was dying and returned from one of the battles there of Gallipoli. And then the other one, too, was the Angel of Mons, M-O-N-S, in France and Belgium. This supposedly ranks of angelic archers that started firing on the Germans and beat them and provided cover to the British troops who were on retreat early in World War I at the Battle of Mons. And so that kind of struck me because it goes way back to English lore with the longbow archers and things way back from the 1400s and 1300s. Right. And so I thought that was pretty cool, pretty interesting. So I would like to go see that in Turkey.
Yeah. That does sound really interesting. Yeah. I like that. It's a different location too, though, what most people say.
Right.
Yeah.
I hear it's quite a sobering place, and it's kind of very peaceful. From what I read, people kind of all these different cultures, it's just a hot spot, internationally, people kind of all come together, and it's kind of peaceful, which is very cool.
Yeah, that's and it's nice for a haunted location to be peaceful. Yeah. Right. Is there a location that you would avoid?
Well, from what I watched, the little bit of your research, I understand there's a location right here in my very hometown of Blue Ash that I think I want to avoid. I gotta ask you guys a little bit more about
Satan's Hollow.
Exactly. It's like I kind of think I know where you guys are talking about. I'm not too sure I want to go there, and I'm not taking my little black dog there either. So
no, you may not see your dog again if you went to Satan's Hollow.
That's right.
Yeah, Christina went there, and
she did. Okay, cool. I have to find out more about that. So,
that's. I will admit that's one of the few places in Cincinnati I haven't been to yet, but Christina found it, so maybe she'll take me there sometime.
No, I don't.
In the winter time, maybe, I don't know, so we just don't get poison ivy. But
That's true. It's all over the place here. So yeah.
yeah. Was there a story that really impacted you, either for better or for good, that you learned about and you're just like, wow?
Oh man, that's really kind of tough. Well, I enjoyed. It didn't really grab me, but I enjoyed learning the background behind Ghostbusters, the old movie, and I had a fun time trying to connect with Roger Ackroyd, Dan Aykroyd's dad, in order to get permission to use. First of all, Dan Aykroyd has said, well, he's like the fourth or fifth generation. He said as the family line went down, the paranormal capabilities kind of got distilled a little bit. But the fact that his great-grandfather, I'm not sure I got this right, his great-grandfather, had these seances in their house on the lake in Canada and so on. And they conjured up people, one thing another, and trying to reach his dad, which I had to do it took 2 or 3 going through a library in Canada connected me to a man that obviously manages or deals with the family. And I went through him in order to get permission from Mr. Ackroyd to use these family pictures and so on and so forth. And so it's just rewarding to see how people all have family ties and all interact, and this family happens to be in touch with the spirit world, and that was really kind of cool that they could conjure up these people there, courtesy of this young man that was a family friend, and the stuff that happened, and the ectoplasm is not green and gooey the way we thought of it. It was this kind of white cloudy stuff that just appears. Yeah, that was neat.
Yeah, that is really neat.
Yeah.
And the Ackroyd family is fascinating. They're just very outspoken too.
And I guess it's some kind of a gin now. I think Dan Aykroyd's marketed some kind of alcohol.
It's Crystal Skull gin.
You're right. Yep.
Yeah, vodka. I think.
Vodka.
But yeah, it's in a crystal skull. It looks really cool. So I think
maybe I need to go get myself one of those. I think I do if I can find one. And I was just thinking, like, all the other stories here, like, the Ghost of Antietam. One of the creepiest ones, again, if you don't mind me, you say, is the Doll Island there in Xochimilco in Mexico City. I don't think I ever want to go see that. That's just like, So, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of. What always has freaked me out is more the spiders. The great amount of spiders creeping out of the dolls. I know they make for great video, just creeping out of the doll heads, but I'm not a big spider. Like, I don't mind spiders, but I don't want to run into them. So
there you go. Yeah.
There's where I have my hesitation. It's usually the wildlife. It has nothing to do with the supernatural. I've run into too many possums and raccoons.
Spirits, you just never know how they go.
Yes. Yeah. So do you have any future events happening that you would like to share with our audience?
Not at the moment. I've done quite a few videos. I did one video, which I need to link to my website. I was very honored that Follett, the book distributor to schools and libraries based in Illinois, chose my book for first chapter Friday. Oh. And they're doing that, as a video thing too. And so I actually shared the introduction to my book, and I read it, and that's of course the story where my grandmother visited my sister in our bedroom. We were little kids right after my grandmother died, and my sister was really upset about the whole thing. And darn if grandma didn't show up one night on the bottom of her bed and patted her and told her everything was fine and so on. And Anne was 10, I was 13, and we shared a bedroom, so I was in the bed like 3 feet away. I didn't notice anything, but if in there in the book, you'll see what my sister has to say about that experience.
Wow.
Yeah. And then the fact that I visualized, the only time I would say that I did visualize what I really thought was something ghostly was also witnessed by my neighbor.
Oh, wow.
And I finished the book, up with that, at the end of the book, because, and it just blew me away that she corroborated something I had seen 15, 20 years ago, and she just corroborated it like last year or two years ago. I just, And then again, that's at the end of the book too, how we, she independently confirmed that we both seen the same apparition of two little children. I saw them going from one direction and she saw them going from other direction, but we saw the same thing, which was like, whoa. So yeah.
But that's always a relief when you run into somebody that has had the same experience you have in the same location. And that's when you sit and pause for a moment and go, what's really going on here? Because it wasn't in my head then. Somebody else saw it. So what's going on?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us today.
Well,
this
you
was
are
a
welcome.
wonderful interview.
Thank you for asking me to appear on your podcast. This is pretty darn cool.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks.
Yeah. There's a lot to this strange and spooky world, and we have no problem interviewing everyone to get to the bottom of it. So
you've got a lot of food for the mill here, I think. Lots to talk about here in Cincinnati and all around. So
yeah,
Cincinnati.
Good
luck with your podcast. I think it's really going to be fun for you.
Thank you. And good luck with the book. And
well, thanks. I'm going to shamelessly self-promotion.
There is no shameless self-promotion.
Written for 10 to 14-year-olds, but I would say that adults who want a good, lighter read would enjoy this as well.
Yes, I did.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you. So that was Creepy and True Stories, not mummies. Well, you have Mummies Exposed, but also Ghosts Unveiled by Kerrie Hollihan. And please pick it up or get a digital copy. Is it available at your local booksellers now?
It's available at your local independent bookstore. It's available online. I personally ask you to promote those brick and mortar bookstores or their online affiliates, because the written word, it's a tough time for, as you know, publishers. It's a tough time for publishers, tough time for illustrators, tough time for authors, and we want to keep it all going, whatever we do. Mine has to be nonfiction for kids, but we want to keep it going, and I would say it's money well spent. So,
indeed, it is. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. Bye.
Yay!
Yay!
We're not really going to talk too much about the interview. It kind of stands on its own, I think.
It does. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We are now in our Hometown Haunt segment. This is the part of the show where we encourage you to send in your own haunted tales from your hometowns. So, for example, I shared about my ghost story from Mishawaka, Indiana, in the haunted Hacienda Mexican restaurant. Jen shared her story about St. Louis and The Exorcist, and we would love to hear your stories. So you can send those to cincycuriosities@gmail.com, and we can read them on the air for you. And I love reading things. So also we have a Twitter and Instagram. So our Instagram is Cincy Cabinet of Curiosities, and our Twitter is Cin Cabinet Curio. But you can contact us. We're very active on social media, especially Christina, and we will thank you and then read them on air. So, Christina, who sent in today's Hometown Haunt?
It's a friend from college. Sorry about that.
It's okay. Jim writes, in 1988, while attending University of Cincinnati, Jen and I inherited an old row house in Clifton. It was owned by a very distant relative no one had known about. She was a recluse hoarder who died in the house filled with piles of collected materials. There were paths through the massive piles of old newspapers, string, aluminum foil, and every garbage can lid within 10 blocks. Oh my. After renting a truck and hauling everything to the dump, we moved in. We soon noticed odd things. Doors would close or open on their own, and we would be awoken by strange sounds. Then, one day, Jen was in the kitchen and yelled out for me. She was standing at the stove and felt someone enter the room and touch her on the shoulder. Being a supportive spouse, I told her that she was crazy and laughed it off. A week later, I was standing in the kitchen at the sink. I heard and felt someone enter the room, walk up behind me, and put their hand on my shoulder. I turned around, expecting to see Jen, and no one was there. Dun, dun, dun. That's the end of the story. Thank you, Jim, for sharing that. It's Clifton, so you're always hearing weird things.
I
You're
think
still
I did.
muted.
I think I didn't paste it, but he said that it happened to whoever moved in afterwards too. Like, so somebody bought the house after they left and experienced the same thing.
Oh, ghosts of hoarders.
Yes, is that a thing?
It is now.
Well, you know, they can die in their hoards.
They do.
So-
They get swooshed. They
I
get
have
swooshed
heard of
by their hordes.
What is it? Have you ever seen Homicide Detective? Joe Kenda on Investigation Discovery?
Yes. Yeah. When you said Joe Kenda, I'm like, yes.
I think it was his case, or I saw this in a TV show that they were looking for a missing person, and they were in the hoarder's house on the couch, dead underneath stuff.
Yeah, I have a friend that
I'll
said,
have to look that up.
I'm just thinking beef jerky.
I have a friend that had some relatives that were hoarders. They were like sisters or something. This almost sounds like an urban legend, but I think it really was true that they got crushed by all the garbage in their house and stuff.
Yeah, that's
I've
sad.
heard of mice and cats and other pets dying in hoarders things.
I mean, a lot of times it literally is something you can't walk through.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is packed with stuff. And
yeah. Growing up again in St. Louis, one of our neighbors at the end of the street, she never let anybody in her house. And I went into her house once because I used to play with her grandkids. And it was this big, old, beautiful kind of Victorian house. But when I walked in, you couldn't see the staircase. You knew where it was, but all you could see was the light at the top. And there was no way. It was just, and of course I was little, but it was a mountain of stuff. And I didn't realize what that was. I thought that was just her. And then I don't know when I realized what a hoarder was, but then I was just like, oh, okay, that's
probably when hoarders came out.
Probably.
Yeah.
I live in fear that because I get sentimentally attached to things. And I'm worried about myself. Not that I can still walk through my house, and it's not, oh my God, I'm going to make myself sound like such a hoarder. I'm not a hoarder. But, you know, they always say you're like one traumatic event away from being a hoarder.
Yes.
And, you know, I've given my sister permission if I ever turn into one that she can come in and just, you know, throw my shit away, no matter how much I get angry.
Yeah, I just cleaned out my mom's house, and oh my, that was a lot. So now when I look at my stuff, I'm like, do I need this? If I haven't worn it or used it in the past 12 months, it's out. So unless it's a special occasion like Halloween costumes, of course, I'm going to only be wearing those like once a year in the decorations. But like we just tossed out a lot of our old college university books because we can't resell them.
Right.
College students really don't use books anymore. Everything's online. So oh my goodness. So we got rid of those, recycled those, and
it's funny because my dad was a nuclear engineer, and so when I was just learning to read, I wondered why he had so many books about psychics. But it was physics. I just couldn't read that well.
Isn't that occult science of nuclear fusion?
Why does he have all these books on psychics? He must be really into that.
That's where all the human sacrifices go.
You delivered that perfectly, Christina. Oh my God. Yeah, my thing right now is photos. I inherited, my grandfather died 2 years ago. And my grandmother, his first wife, tons and tons of photos. I had never seen them, never knew they existed. So now I have all these photos of family members. I have no idea who they are, but I'll be damned if I get rid of them because they're really cool old photos.
Mm-hmm.
But what do you do with them? They sit in a box on a shelf. You know, I'd like to scan them in, but it's thousands of photos.
Yeah, I got
There's
slides.
services.
There are
Huh?
services.
Yeah, there's services
that's
that will
true.
spend. I mean, you could always send it to one of those, and I think they put them on. I mean, that's probably the best thing is to have them put on discs or discs. Listen to me,
Yeah.
like in a. You know,
Yeah.
when I was young, we used these discs.
How about a zip drive there, Christina?
Yeah.
Floppy disk?
we used to use these 5.5 inch. You know, I mean, when I first started using a computer, we used cassettes to record stuff on. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you know.
I think now they offer flash drives.
Good.
Everyone, thank you for joining us for another exciting episode of the Cincinnati Cabinet of Curiosities presents Hometown Haunts. I am your host, Kat Klockow. I also have Christina Wald and Jen Koehler. You can follow us at Cin Cabinet Curio on Twitter, Cincy Cabinet of Curiosities on Instagram, and become a member of our not a member of our Kickstarter team, pledge to our Kickstarter. It goes until November 2nd. There are a variety of different options for tiers. We just released the regional cryptid print tier, which is $35, and it comes with 4 prints, a physical copy of Cincinnati Cabinet of Curiosities issue 1. It's signed by everyone, and a digital copy, and stickers, and a whole bunch of other fun things. So go find us on Kickstarter. We're on the Fresh Picks. We are one of the projects we love by Kickstarter. It's just Cincinnati Cabinet of Curiosities in that search bar. So thank you. Until next time, stay spooky.
Bye.
Bye.